Good day there, school leaders. It is so exciting to be presenting to you the fourth part of this session. We have been looking at how we can prepare our schools, our community, our teachers, our parents, our students to not just plan but implement a remote and blended teaching and learning plan. In this fourth part, we're going to be looking at preparing learners and parents. And it is extremely exciting because when you think about remote learning, when you think about a blended learning format, parents and of course the learners play a huge role in this. This session has been brought to you by the Office of Education Quality Assurance Lagos, supported by Holistic Business Solutions and Global School Leaders. It is an exciting time, even as we go into this fourth part, and this will be the completion of the toolkit. There is a lot to learn here because we're going to be looking at the role of the learners and the role of the parents. Once again, you really cannot underemphasize the learners and the parents in this entire process. Let's get into it. When we go into the process of creating a blended and remote teaching and learning plan, we cannot remove learners and their parents from the entire process. Why? When you think about remote happens where? At home, not in school. Now, who is at home with these learners? Their parents. So if their parents are not really clear about what exactly is going on, they cannot provide the support that they need. So it is important that as school leaders, you actually invest a lot of time in creating a framework that actually brings in the learners and the parents from a point of view of first getting them to understand what role they play, what is expected of them, and how they can actually give feedback about the entire process. It's important that these are clearly communicated. In this creating a framework that includes learners and parents, the first thing you need to look at is clarity. You must clearly communicate the changes that are going on, the changes that they need to expect, and what exactly they need to expect from the school in terms of support, in terms of learning resources. All of that needs to be clearly communicated. And when you're thinking about clear communication, you also have to think about the medium. Remember your learning champions? Part of the data that your learning champions should have provided is what medium is best for these parents. And then you can choose the top three and use that to communicate the changes and the expectations about the new learning mediums, the teaching and learning via a remote or blended format, and of course the expectations from the school. This needs to be communicated in a timely manner so that parents are aware before all that work starts getting into the house. Another really important part is that the students need to learn how to take ownership. The reality is when you feel capable, there's almost nothing that you don't want to try. So when you think about the students taking ownership of their learning goals, you need to come from a point of view of empowerment. How do I empower the students so that they understand, one, how powerful an experience it is for them to be in charge of their own learning by taking ownership of it, and two, how great it is an opportunity to be able to begin self-management even at this age. There are plenty of adults who do not understand the concept of self-management and thus cannot. So imagine that from this age, we're exposing our learners to this sort of lifelong skills. So it is a great thing, but if you do not explain it to them, they do not understand how powerful an experience it could be, and they do not understand what beauty there is in this opportunity for them to learn self-management skills. The very third part, which again is not the least, is the role of the parents. Parents play an invaluable role in this entire process. Not only do they ease the burden for teachers, but they provide a supportive learning environment at home. If they do not know what needs to be done and they do not understand the timelines, then they really cannot provide a lot of support. And what then happens is that the burden goes back to the teachers, but even then the teachers cannot be effective because guess what? It's either done remotely or it is via blended learning format. So it is really important that these three elements, one, understanding that it is new for the learners and their parents, and being clear in your communication, being timely in your communication, and of course, stating very clearly the changes and the expectations from the school. It is also clear, the second point being that you need to explain to the students how important this is. One, it is powerful for you to be in charge of your learning. Two, learning self-management at this age, it's a beautiful thing. But if this is not explained or even shown to the students, they don't understand it. It's like new responsibility that they may not necessarily want to be a part of. And the third, but by no least the least important, is the role of the parents. It is invaluable in this entire process. And if you do not manage this process properly, then what they should do or what they could do in easing the burden on the teachers and supporting learning at home will not happen. So once again, in creating this framework, you must look at these 3 points and you must make sure that you embed it very strongly. The two core things that you should take away from this particular toolkit, this toolkit, of course, like I mentioned, is how to prepare learners and their parents. The two key things that you must take away is one, community engagement, and two, support. Those are the two main things that you must take away from this. How do you mobilize the community? How do you engage the community? How do you get your parents to be supportive of this? What are the kind of messages that you need to be sending to the parents? How do you lead them into that space where they begin to explore ideas to mobilize support and even extra resources from the community to make this remote and blended teaching plan happen? The first action step is to use your community leadership guide to develop a plan for parent engagement. If the parents do not engage with you, if they're not ready to mobilize support for you and even give of their resources to help at home, for example, money to buy data for the students, money to pay for subscription for the TV stations, money to pay for Wi-Fi such that the students can go on the Lagos Learn Together website, then not a lot is going to happen. So you must think engagement. The second thing, like I said, is support. And in getting their support, they must have a clear understanding of their role and how they can help the students. So what are the weekly routines that should be going home, such that both the learners and the parents can manage learning at home? It must be clear. And that weekly routine cannot go home on a Friday and then go home on a Thursday and then go home on a Friday. It must have specific days and times such that the parents are waiting for it. If not, then it can get lost because there's a lot that is going on in the home front. Having to not be clear about what the school is going to do is just an added responsibility. Honestly, they might see it as added stress, and you don't even want that. You need their support. So the second action step for you is that you need to share a sample routine with teachers as the school leader. This will then help them develop one for their classrooms, which they are sending home. Because remember, one way to help the teachers is to equip them. So giving them a sample routine would help them to develop another one instead of having to start from the scratch developing a routine. So remember, when you're using this toolkit, the two principal things you must be focusing on: community engagement, two, home support. And just by following these two action steps, you will create a really strong remote and blended learning framework. This particular session is going to be broken down into 3 parts. The first part, as we have mentioned, is community leadership. What is the community leader? Who is the community leader? What is the role of the community leader? How can the community leader help the school? How can the community leader help the learners? How can the community leaders help the parents? So we're going to be looking at the role of community leader. We're going to be looking at preparing learners. What sort of preparation should we give to our learners for either a remote teaching or learning plan or for a blended teaching and learning plan? So how do we prepare our learners? The third thing, and it is not the least, is preparing our parents. How can we prepare our parents to be who we want them to be, who we need them to be for the school, for their students, for the teachers at this time? These three are critical when we look to preparing learners and parents towards accepting and implementing a remote and blended teaching plan at home. Many times, we as school leaders see the work that we do as just within the boundaries of the school. Just once you walk into the gates, then our work starts. And many times that's not the reality. The reality is that a school is like a focal point in a community because a lot of the students in the community come to the school. So when you think about it like that, you have a lot of influence. The parents know you, the grandma knows you, the neighbors know you, The learners, of course, they know you. So you must begin to look at your work and understand that it is not limited to the boundaries of your school, especially during a crisis situation. So what you need to do is actually get out and go into the community. Come out of that boundary, come out of that school boundaries. Not, it doesn't have to be physically, but just think about the fact that your work extends, okay? And then you need to come out into the community that you serve. When there's a crisis like this, there's an opportunity for a school to shine out the light that they carry, because learning is light. So you need to come out of that boundary, go into your community, and begin to ask yourself, what can I do to make this work in this community? And that is something that is extremely important for you to take a hold of at this time. A second thing that you need to do when we think community leadership is find partners. There are many companies out there who, just by explaining the fact that learning should not stop, they are willing to go the extra mile for the school. But if you don't ask, then nothing is going to happen. And in asking, you don't just go out there and you're vague. No, you need to be clear about the resources that you need. You need to be clear about how the donation is going to happen. You need to go out there and find people that can help. The organizations might be working in your catchment area. They may not necessarily be working in your catchment area, but you need to clearly itemize what you need, and you need to go to where you can find it. Identify potential partners who could donate resources like books, pens, even digital devices, just to ensure that learning continues. And the third thing you need to be looking at is, don't forget that the community itself is like a huge resource pool. Huge. So just by involving your community champions in educating pockets of parents, like, right, it's almost like you're creating distributive leadership within the community. And once these education champions have educated the new this parent communities about their role and the learning routines and the things that are needed by the school for them to do, you have mobilized massive support for the school. Your learning champions are extremely important for you, so choose them wisely. All right? As a school, you really cannot do anything by yourself. It takes the help of your champion parents or even elders sometimes in the community to drive awareness and educate parents and insist that not just are they getting an education, but they're also doing their part to ensure that home learning routines continue seamlessly. This is one of the resources that you would have for your planning. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through a quick walkthrough of this particular resource, and what you need to do with this resource is just use it to develop a long-term mobilization plan for your school, and of course for the team in general. Okay, and this team is kind of inclusive of the parents and the learners. Okay, so don't just think about the team as just your teachers, think about the entire community. All right, and it's called the Community Learners Leadership Guide. All right, so what do parents need to know? Who will communicate it and when? The timeliness of communication is very important, so don't overlook it, please don't. All right, and then so what is the new learning arrangements? What are the days, hours, routines to follow at home? It must be clearly stated. Don't assume that they're going to understand. They will only understand because they see it. And then we've put some other elements on the checklist for you. Feel free to add more. And when you come to mobilizing support and resources, again, the notes, right, so that it kind of helps you with your thinking process. So are there organizations working in the communities already? That's a question that you can ask your champions. All right, how about the ones that maybe have tried to come into their community prior? Is this not a good time to pull them in, for example? So think like that. And then how do you ensure that all your learners have access to textbooks at home? All right, so that's how you mobilize support and resources. And remember, there's the Lagos Learn Together website, which is there for you to pull all these resources from. And then feedback is so critical. Feedback and support, do not just leave it out. It's really important. When are you going to speak with the parents? Who's going to go into the community? How about calling them to find out, oh, how is it going? Providing a maybe WhatsApp platform. So all of these things are ways that you can actually begin to engage your parents very strategically, very intentionally, so that you're sure that what they're doing at home aligns with what you're hoping will get done in school. The role of the learners is another one that you really need to pay particular attention to. They're the ones going to be doing the work. They're the ones going to be engaging with the work and engaging either offline or blended in a via blended learning format with the teachers. And of course, they're the ones that are engaging with the parents. So we need to prepare them. They need to understand the change. They need to appreciate their role in the entire process. They need to know that, oh, this is what learning, this is how you're going to be learning. These are the changes from how you typically learn, and this is what it means for you, right? And also we need to begin to think about feedback for them as well. And the second thing you need to do, beyond just explaining to them exactly the changes and their role and all of those other things that they need to be aware of to get into this process, you need to share weekly routines with them. At the start of every week, in the middle of every week, determine what works for you in terms of timelines of sharing the routines, but you need to have a specific timeline so that it can be adhered to. Once you share these weekly routines with them, the learners and their parents know exactly what to expect at all times. And there is a tool that will give you to use in preparing this. But you need to understand that you must be consistent. You can't do it on a particular day or within a particular hour one week and then change it the next week. No, consistency really matters, especially because you're not directly working with these students. They're going to be working with their parents, they're going to be working by themselves. So you must be very clear and consistent. The third thing is that you must build and maintain a community, even if it is offline. You must find a way to help learners stay connected. That connection is part of learning. The social part of education is a very important part, so you can't break it. They must stay connected with their peers and still feel like they're part of the school community. So you need to begin to think, how can I make this happen? Is it virtually? Do I send sticky notes out? What do I do? Do I go out into the community once in a while? Or maybe not you, necessarily the school leader, but your teachers, and just pull the students together, everybody wearing their masks, everybody well social distanced, but it gives them a mode for engagement. You need to think like that. You need to prepare your learners, you need to engage them, you need to give them weekly routines, and you must explain to them exactly what is going on. Don't imagine that they will understand, or even worse, leave the explanation to their parents. No, it's not the job of the parents, it's your job. So you need to work with your teachers such that they can prepare their learners adequately. I absolutely just love this teacher resource, and it is a sample home routine that would actually help the teachers plan for their learners, and it is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. You would notice the times here, you would notice the activities, you would notice notes for parents. It is so clear, and you would notice there's break times. Remember, you need to have break times in between so that posture, cramps can be taken care of, because they might not have the right furniture at home to sit down for long periods like they would in school. And it goes all the way to 9 p.m. where they should take a they should take a break and go to bed with a book. It is so clearly outlined in this particular learner's routine. Okay, so it's a simple sample learner's routine that your teachers can use, and just showing the teachers this actually equips them with a lot of skill, because they might not even necessarily know how to create a routine such as this. But them seeing this, it just clears all those gray areas, takes out the fog, and then they can clearly sit down and get to work for all of their learners across different grade levels in your school. So please share this tool with your teachers, even as they begin to work towards preparing the learners and their parents for remote and blended teaching and learning. When you think about preparing parents, don't just think about giving them work to do. No, right? Don't think about it like that and say, oh, they're children, so let them do the work. No, because you might have parents who are feeling honestly quite lost and overwhelmed. They're trying to stay on track with their own work, right? They're trying to stay on track with um, going out, keeping their families safe, and then added onto it is actually tracking what their learners are doing at home. So you need to be very empathetic at this time towards your parent community. You need to understand the fact that with schools being closed and learning taking place at home, there's a lot of scheduling that they have to manage, and they might not just be managing for just one learner. They might have several different learners in several different schools, plus their own work from their offices that they need to be keeping track of. So you need to actually have a process by which you encourage your parents, and that's the first thing. You need to encourage them and help them feel appreciated, help them understand the fact that we're confident in what they would do with their learners at home, in playing their own role, and share the routines for them so that they have an understanding of what they should be doing. Let them know that they're valuable, because they really are. If they choose not to buy data, if they choose not to turn on the TV, if they choose not to go to any Lagos Learn Together website or anything, then you would have huge learning gaps even with their learners, right? So you need to encourage them and show them that, once again, you're confident in the role that they're going to play, and of course that they're valuable to this new teaching and learning process. Okay, so it's important whilst you're preparing the parents that you encourage them. The second thing is you must be clear about communicating your expectations. Communicate it very clearly. Don't assume that they will understand. No, because a lot of our words might be subject to bias. The way I would read it as a parent might be different from the way you as a school leader read it, right? So you must be very clear. Communicate clearly what you want them to do and how you want them to be engaged in this process. One of the biggest things that they can do for you is actually ensure that the routines that you have sent home are being followed. The students are completing their work on time, and they are the ones that can actually help you with this process. So you must be clear with how they can help you. Okay, so dear parents, this is what you will do for us. Ensure that the learning routine that has been sent home is adhered to strictly. Learners should be in class at 9 a.m. if that's what you have put in, and then they can close at 9 p.m. with a book. So be very clear about it so that they don't have to interpret it by themselves. Okay, that's extremely important. And the last thing you can do is, of course, provide the necessary training that they need to actually feel empowered and capable of this new work that we have given to them to do. Once again, you don't necessarily have to think about doing it yourself. Think about involving your community champions and maybe teachers who live in these catchment areas. Another thing that you can leverage is digital tools. Okay, you can leverage digital tools in training the parents, and of course in helping them keep track of the routines. Okay, so tell them once they're done, click here, click here. So that kind of sends maybe a message to you, and then you know which learner is getting the work done and which one is falling behind. Okay, and impress it upon the parents that it's not just there needs to be academic honesty. Okay, academic integrity is a big deal. So it's not for them to do the work, it's for the learners to do the work, or learning is not happening. All right, so in preparing the parents, don't just tell them what they're going to do. Encourage them, communicate the expectations clearly, provide training, and try and help them understand that they need to uphold the integrity of the academic routines that have been sent home. Now, there are some messages you need to send home in terms of preparing the parents. So the messages you send to the students are different. The messages for engaging the community are different. The ones for parents are also different. Okay. Here you're thinking about engagement, you're thinking about empowerment, you're thinking about encouragement, and making it as easy and as clear as possible. And this resource right here contains key messages for parents. All right, so these are messages that you can adapt and adopt for your school. These are the key messages. This is status and the notes. Okay, remote and the blended learning is a mixture of teacher directed, self-directed, and parent led experiences. It's clear. And then you will explain to them what needs to be happening here. So in that week, if it is just remote, then you write it remote, which is what? Self-directed and parent-led experiences. So you write it there very clearly so the parents know what to expect in that particular week. Okay, so that's really important. So running through this list, it kind of gives you an idea of how you should be engaging the parents, encouraging them, explaining in very clear terms what they need to be doing, and of course providing feedback mechanisms for them to stay on track. All right, so you talked about routines in this particular place. Here you are talked about physical exercise. So don't let the children not just sit down and do all the work at once. No, they need to move around, they need to manage screen time, they need to understand how to show the children the passwords. Of course you must think about things like K9, so internet safety, such that the children things are not popping up on their screen when they are working. So all of those things are tools and resources that you want to give to your parents to help them ensure that the home learning experience is seamless, is smooth, and it is not fraught with disruptions. Take a deep breath. Yes, take a deep breath in and let it out. How are you feeling about this? We have actually come to the end of the course. This is the last slide in this toolkit. How are you feeling? Write it down. I am feeling confident about. I am feeling excited about. I am feeling worried about. I am feeling anxious about. Write them down. And then we can begin to look at the belief systems that are causing these feelings. How are you feeling about community leadership and mobilizing support? Do you think that you would have the support that you need when you reach out? When do you plan to reach out? What will you be reaching out about? You must be able to answer all these questions that I'm asking you to write out. The Office of Education Quality Assurance, supported by Holistic Business Solutions and Global School Leaders, are here for you. But you must first clearly define your needs. You must clearly itemize what exactly you want to do. What are the action points that you're going to take? And where would you require support? You must be very clear about it. Understanding the fact that you are the school leader. Yes, you have a team, your teachers, the learners, the parents, and to be honest, the entire community, the larger community outside of your school walls are there. But you are the lead and you must take leadership position. So you need to ask yourself how you are feeling about that and how you're feeling about reaching out for mobilization, how you're feeling about mobilizing support for your school. You must be honest, because that is important for you to actually reach the goals that you have set out for yourself and for your school community. The second thing you need to be asking yourself is, who do you speak with to find out about partnering with others in terms of resource mobilization? What are the connections you need to activate? Once again, the Office of Education Quality Assurance, your learning champions, your teachers, even your parents, you will be shocked at how supportive they can be. You will be shocked at the tips that they can give. But you must, first of all, itemize your needs very clearly in terms of partnerships and resource mobilization. Finally, what is that thing you're going to start doing right now? What is that one thing, two things that you're going to keep doing? How do you truly want to begin to prepare your learners and your parents for this transition? It starts on the inside. It starts with you. If you are not ready, then how do you get your community ready? I will encourage you to go through this entire toolkit again, the four sessions 1.1 to 1.4. As you're going through it this second time, maybe the third time, write out the things that you might not be clear about and then reach out for support. This session has been put together by the Office of Education Quality Assurance Lagos, supported by Holistic Business Solutions and Global School Leaders. They are a strong support system for you, but you must determine where you need them to come in. I am excited. I am happy that we have come to the end of this, because you are empowered to begin to create a strong remote and blended learning framework for your school. I honestly cannot wait to hear the amazing things that you're going to do with this toolkit. Thank you so much to the Office of Education Quality Assurance, the support provided by Holistic Business Solutions and Global School Leaders in putting together this really amazing training session. It is not just for schools in Lagos State, it is for schools in Nigeria, in Africa, and world over. Because when you think about it, anywhere can experience a crisis, anywhere can experience something that causes schools to shut down. And so you really do need to have this toolkit in your kitty. You do need to read it, use it, and begin to plan for your schools. Thank you very much.